Alright, this review is a bit long as I go into details about certain aspects of this movie. To save you guys the trouble, Pop Spectrum gives Inside Out 2.5 pops out of 5. If you wish to see why, stay tuned. 5 years in the making, Pixar proudly presents Inside Out. After young Riley is uprooted from her Midwest life and moved to San Francisco, her emotions, joy, fear, anger, disgust, and sadness conflict on how to best navigate a new city, house, and school. After its release into theaters, the movie has received worldwide praises for its originality and creativity, how it expresses a powerful message in its own simplistic way while also challenging our perspective on life itself. In some ways, I can understand this, but I found myself to be more disappointed rather than moved. Okay, so sue me. I am one of the few people in this world that didn't really like the movie. To be fair, I'll go over the pros and cons of the movie, starting with the cons, just so we can try to end this video on a happy note. Number 1. Riley felt like the only well-developed character compared to the other humans. Why was she the only one given mixed-gendered emotions when everyone else had a one-gendered system? Plus, they were all such huge stereotypes. Riley's father acts like any other cliched father, thinking of sports and not paying attention to those around him unless something goes wrong. Her mother is the sympathetic type who assumes her husband should read her mind and, of course, fantasizes of a runaway affair whenever he does something wrong. Way to show how monogamy works, people. And the one boy she meets in the movie has all of his emotions freak out over a girl. Really? Is he an over-the-top cliche of the typical boy meeting a girl, or does that happen with everyone he meets? So why was Riley given such care and attention to when every other human was built on bland cliches we've seen in other movies? Number 2. Seriously, why does Riley have mixed-gendered emotions when no one else does? Is there something to say about her possible future reaching into maturity? Will their genders change depending on the adult she becomes? Or did they just find convenient actors to portray the emotions? I'm not saying that they're not good for their parts, but it seems all too convenient how Riley gets a wide variety of actors portraying her emotions when no one else does. They knew Amy Poehler would be perfect for joy, Lewis Black just had to be anger, Bill Hader is fear, and they literally built sadness and disgust around Phyllis Smith and Mindy Kaling. It seemed obvious how they wanted to round up these good actors for these emotions and just want us to deal with the fact that Riley is the only one with mixed-gendered emotions. Number 3. What was the point in Disgust? They say her role was to keep Riley from being poisoned socially and physically, but doesn't that seem more like anger and fear's job? Disgust seemed more in tune with what Riley ate and what she wore. That's it. And even in the scene where Riley sees the cool kids, that could have been carried by Joy wanting to talk to them, only to have fear stop her because he's scared of Riley embarrassing herself. The other emotions could have easily done her job, so we just had this extra character for no good reason. Number 4. Bing Bong! The very minute he stepped onto the screen, I knew exactly what would happen. And when that scene happened, I whispered to myself, called it! Number 5. The whole movie felt like they wanted to concentrate on the layout of the mind and how it works, rather than concentrate on what's really going on. It's like we're going through a tour of the mind because Pixar wanted to show off the elements of the mind, but the overall story just seemed very messy. Here's long-term memory, here's where memories are forgotten, here's Imagination Land, here's Dream Studio. Oh, by the way, anger, disgust, and fear are making a mess up at headquarters without joy and sadness, but who cares? Let's just keep exploring the rest of this place and show off how the mind works. Thanks, Pixar! Number 7. Why isn't there a better way to get back to headquarters? Referring back to number 5, it obviously feels like they put so much attention to the scenery rather than develop common sense. For being something as important as headquarter emotions, you'd think they have protocol system that would help them get back to headquarters. You would think, just in case something goes wrong and the emotions would somehow be thrown out of headquarters. I mean, it's not like they had a whole wall full of manuals and could have helped. Oh wait, yes they did! And do I need to bring up those clouds? They showed that they could have picked up a piece of cloud in Cloud City to fly around. Am I bringing up the Eagles argument from Lord of the Rings here? Number 8. Are we led to assume that the only reason why we act out of character and get moody is because joy and sadness are out of the office? That seems like avoided responsibility. Instead of us naturally responding to change and maturity, it's explained here that things could have been different if joy and sadness were still in the room. I understand the point of Joy's arc in understanding sadness's part in Riley's emotions, but I found this plot full of questions and concerns. Remember, kids, if you're suddenly feeling moody and emotional, it's probably because your emotions are not doing their job right. Alright, so I've listed the movie's cons. So is there something I liked in this movie? Well, number 1, I'll give it points for creativity. This is the first animated movie that I can think of with no real setting to work with. Okay, well, there's San Francisco, but we're talking about the main setting, which is Riley's mind. Every other animated movie that I can think of has a setting inspired by real locations, architectures, and historical periods. This, however, is all based in the mind, a setting that doesn't really have a broadened article of inspiration. It's not like we haven't looked into someone's mind before. Heck, they made a ride out of it back at Epcot, when it used to be good. But this was the first attempt to expand that idea into a working system. Although it seemed a little too organized to portray something as unpredictable and expansive as the human mind, it was at least a creative attempt. Number 2. Although they took every idea way too literal, there were some jokes that really worked out well. I found myself laughing here and there, so that's a plus. I especially like the imaginary boyfriend line. Canada. I will say, however, there was one joke in particular that was pretty good, but they kept bringing it up over and over again. You know you can kill a joke if you use it too much. Number 3. The animation as usual is very good. The studio went all out animating all the orbs, as well as the emotions themselves. They're apparently made of energy particles, so they emit bits of particles from their bodies whenever they move about. So all in all, they showed a lot of effort and creativity with the art style and animation. Number 4. The joy and sadness arc. I understand what the plot was about, to see Joy come into terms with sadness and her role in Riley's development. I will admit, though, I wasn't a huge fan of Joy herself. She seemed very pretentious as the lead of the emotions and had to have things done a certain way. Still, I understood why she behaved that way, and that is because her and the other emotions just want what's best for Riley. Joy took it upon herself to try and make Riley happy, no matter what the situation, even when she's been taken away from her home, far away from her friends. That's nice and all, but how is she going to make the following scenarios a happy memory? Hey, your pet just died, but that's okay, you can just get a new one, right? An earthquake just came and destroyed your house and all of your belongings, but that's okay, at least you're still kicking though, right? Grandma's dead. So basically, instead of watching a movie on how our emotions work, we're watching a symbolic tale of accepting our own feelings and being honest with ourselves, how Joy has to come to terms and understand why Riley needs sadness in her life. It's a nice message to tell an audience. I just personally believe the all-around delivery was poorly done. To me, it would have made more sense if anger took over. Why? Because we saw throughout the movie what happens when we are consumed by anger. We don't think or act right when we are furious. It would have made better sense to have anger kick out joy and sadness just so he can take over and be furious for Riley. Riley was taken from her home and friends. She's scared and lonely but forced to put on a smile for her parents. That's when anger should take over and force Joy out of the picture, which starts the journey back to headquarters while she learns sadness is rolling Riley's emotions. It makes more sense to have an emotion take over rather than have an accident. Just know that if that accident didn't happen, Riley wouldn't have had that meltdown. I ask you all, what makes better sense? To have an emotion consume you and control every action you do, or to have your emotions accidentally thrown out, which is the real cause of your mood swings? That you would never ever ever have a meltdown and express how you really felt if your emotions worked better together. Okay, if there's one thing I understand, is that movies take certain steps to tell their story a certain way, while knocking common sense out of the window. How they take illogical steps to get from point A to point B as long as it ends the way they want it to. Why did Hans suddenly turn on Anna, just so we can get that overly emotional sisterly love ending? Why did the mercenaries turn against Milo and the city of Atlantis? To get an epic ending full of explosions and fight scenes. Why not? Why didn't they have an alternative method of returning to headquarters just in case any of the emotions were sucked out of there? just so we can explore the human mind and watch two conflicted emotions try to get along. Makes perfect sense, right? No, it really doesn't. In this vast, very organized mind, you should have an alternative route to get back to headquarters. You know, just in case. That or take a puffy cloud. Eagle's argument! In the end, it's not that I don't understand what they were trying to do. Moving away from your home and your friends can really change you. I should know since I had to do that a couple of times growing up. That being said, they clearly made it obvious that the only reason why Riley was changing wasn't because of the move. It was because joy and sadness were thrown out of headquarters. That her whole world was literally crumbling down because joy and sadness couldn't work together properly and do their jobs as emotions. Still, in order to get their moral across to the audience, they had to display the struggle the emotions were facing in accepting sadness as a key emotion for Riley to embrace. That you need to feel sad and cry from time to time. The message is clear, and people do need to be more honest with their emotions. But overall, the story just seemed to be questionable and full of holes. Pop Spectrum gives Inside Out 2.5 pops out of 5. We gave it points for creativity and delivering a sound message, but the story leads us into an unnecessary journey that could have been solved with some common sense. This is Robyn from Pop Spectrum. Thanks for watching. And please don't hate me. Be sure to like, favorite, and comment on this video, as well as subscribe to Pop Spectrum. Thank you for watching!